Good morning everyone and welcome back to the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Premiership, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, alongside Charlie McClellan for the first game of the weekend on Court B, which will be contested between West Bromwich Albion and GBG Knight. Let's go through the squads quickly, and then we can talk about how these two fared in Game Week 1, expectations for Game Week 2 and the season as a whole. West Bromwich Albion have Harry Beswick, Lucas Chrysler, Chris Gordon, Matt Gilbert, Brad Bates, Ollie Rock and Barris Innell. And for GBG Knights, they are comprised of the following: Ben Keat, Reece Mallett, Kai Shah, Oscar Smedley, George Holloway and Jack Ewins. Charlie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very excited for Game Week 2. I love the Christmas game week. It's fantastic. I'm expecting a lot of cheer, some real tension as well, some massive games this weekend. And yeah, just all-round good spirit here at the Lee Westwood Sports Centre. It just feels like everybody is ready for another weekend of football. Absolutely.
Let's show you the live league standings so you can see how these two fared in Game Week 1, which feels like ages ago. West Bromwich Albion, 5 games played, 9 points. Very uniquely, it was 3 consecutive 0-0 draws in Game Week 1, which is the first time that's ever happened in their history. They've never had so much as 2 consecutive 0-0 draws. So maybe a shift to a more defensive, more solid foundation than one we've come to expect in years gone by. But they're still a threat. They still have the players. It does look like they're without Brad Bates. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on as the day unfolds. GBG Knights, however, yet to get any point from their opening 4 games. But I would say from the promoted sides, between them and Muscle Warriors, they look like they've got a real bit of quality. They're growing as a collective, and you would suspect if either of those was to stay up, you'd probably put your chips in their corner.
Yeah, I went back obviously after the last weekend, and because as you said, it felt like it's been ages, so I've pretty much watched every game from that last National League weekend at least twice, just to sort of keep myself ticking over with Powerchair Football. And yeah, GBG were impressive in some games. I watched them, especially against Villa. They moved the ball really nicely, and they're quite unlucky in that game not to score. I watched them quite a lot of regionals as well with the West Midlands Regional League. Obviously I go there semi-regularly, and they're definitely improving. They're going in the right direction, and it'll be really interesting to see not just these 2 teams but all of the teams this weekend, how they've improved. I think, you and I got to record that podcast together after the last weekend, and we tried to give, constructive criticism of every team, and it'll be so interesting to see, whether, I guess, the teams agreed with us and what they've gone and worked on themselves, and yeah, the improvements between Game Week 1 and Game Week 2, because I'm expecting every team to have added another 5-10% to their level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm very intrigued to see how West Brom fare if they stick with that defensive setup they showed across all of their 5 games in Game Week 1, or they're going to look to really attack. If and when they did attack in Game Week 1, and it was that game against Muscle Warriors, it was kind of the familiar free-flowing attacking play we've come to expect, but that did leave vulnerabilities in behind, whereby they conceded 2 sloppy goals, certainly by Chris Gordon's standards. Ian Harley is our central referee, who will get proceedings underway very shortly on Court A. Villa Rockets take on Muscle Warriors, and it looks like they're going to perfectly coordinate kickoff. Give me your prediction for this one, Charlie.
I'm hoping to see a more free-flowing and sort of a more cut-loose West Brom in this game. Side that are really going to attack and cause problems for GBG Knights. I do think they'll have enough quality in their ranks to get a win over GBG. It wouldn't surprise me if GBG managed to score. I think I'll go for a 3-1 West Brom win.
That's exactly the scoreline I did. And Oscar Smedley's going to have an early sight at goal, saved on the line by Lucas Chrysler. If we go through the starting squads, Chris Gordon, Lucas Chrysler, Matt Gilbert and Ollie Rock. And for GBG Knights, they have Reece Mallet as the most defensive. Jack Ewins will be that central kind of box-to-box player. He's complemented by Oscar Smedley and Kai Shah.
Yeah, good early pressure from GBG, getting that shot off through Oscar Smedley straight away. Glad to see that he's being given a bit more licence to roam this weekend. He played a very limited role in that first weekend.
Agreed.
The first weekend of Premiership football of his Powerchair football career, and now he gets a chance to really show what he's made of.
He is a sensational young player with an incredibly bright future, so be interesting to see if and when he takes his chances.
Bit of confusion here, whether it was a goal kick or a corner. It looked like a pretty clear-cut corner to me.
Tough start to the weekend for GBG Knights. 5-game weekend. They play West Brom here, and then their second game is against Leeds PFC. But across the weekend, they play Sevenoaks, Muscle Warriors and West Bromwich Albion and Throssell. So 3 really credible opportunities to register points, if not their first win of the 25-26 campaign.
West Brom will be frustrated there. They thought they'd done enough to win a corner in that instance, but straight on the attack through Chris Gordon. Jack Ewins is such a good dribbler of the ball. So tough to break down.
A very, very underrated player is Jack Ewins. I remember watching him in the Premiership with AFC Bournemouth Warriors, but he seems to have found a completely different level since his transfer from them. Was central to their Championship campaign and will no doubt play a big role in this Premiership season as Lucas Chrysler back to Chris Gordon, just traps it dead, back down to the bottom corner, just angled out. Something he's so good at is just always considering the angle of his chair to ensure ricochets and cross-field balls fall favourably to either a teammate or the space, because we know how much West Brom like to press forward, condense them into their own half.
Good shape fluidity as well from West Brom. Lucas Chrysler obviously ended up on that left wing, and Ollie Rock just filled in his position behind Chris Gordon. And then when there was a break in play, they could go back to their natural setup. Although Lucas Chrysler is becoming increasingly versatile. I could see him being utilised on the wing at some point this season if needed to make an impact. He's such a clean striker of the ball and such an intelligent player as well. So patient, which is what I love to see.
He's coming over to take this kick in. Back to Gordon. Good assured clearance from Reece Mallet. Chris Gordon, fresh from a one-day England camp, strikes an effort towards goal. And he finds the back of the net early on, within 4 minutes. We're just going to go on to talk about the sharpness and the fact he's played plenty of football as of late.
Fantastic finish from Chris Gordon. Well worked, actually. Get it wide and then just pick up a position in the centre. And the ball back into him from the wide area it's a deceptively difficult one to get right, and was very well executed. And then Chris Gordon, obviously, is just going to slot into that space.
Goalkeepers of the respective teams just battling away. Out to Matt Gilbert. Ricochets kindly to Chris Gordon. Can certainly see what they're trying to do. The GBG doing just enough to restrict the passing lanes, but they've got a busy task on their hands.
Good work from Lucas Chrysler. This will be a brighter start for West Brom. Obviously, you mentioned their difficulty in scoring freely at the last National League weekend. I know they had that big win over Muscle Warriors, but other than that, it did look really stunted in attack, and already they look to have more of a identity going forward. The wingers especially seem to know what they're doing a lot more.
Just to give an idea of how close it is at the top, even this early on, this a potential 3 points for West Brom here does put them within a point of the league leaders, Aspire. Obviously a game more played, but it is so closely contested. And this is a fantastic opportunity for Chris Gordon and co to double the lead within 6 minutes. Indirect. Interesting to see what Ollie Rock does here, what role he performs. Keep an eye on Matt Gilbert as well. He's in a lot of good space, and a really nice, well-worked set piece. Really test Jack Ewins.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, it was very unique, very unexpected.
That was really interesting. Obviously, it makes sense. Like, now you think about it, I'm thinking, why haven't I seen that before?
Chris Gordon would have probably wanted a little bit more power, either locating Matt Gilbert or going for goal himself. Yeah, it was almost like a boom shaping up as such, but not the full rotation on the receiver, just fired into the front bumper. And as you said, it's something you're surprised you don't see more, because it's widely known that you can generate so much more power and accuracy with the front bumper.
Yeah, like a meaty front bumper, like it's such a good deflecting surface, and like you're going to get enough power on the original spin anyway, so it's not like, yeah, it was pretty much went to goal as powerfully as, like, maybe a bit less than a boom, but certainly like a strong shot. Yeah, very, very interesting from West Brom. It's an example of things that have been probably worked on between the last National League weekend and this one. Set pieces, using what they saw at the last weekend and just trying stuff out on the training pitch.
Gordon down to the 180 of Ollie Rock, cross to Matt Gilbert, exchanges some really nice passes. Once again locates the West Brom chair. GBG really struggling to get control of this game, being condensed right back into that final third, and that's what it's needed. It's been very isolated as Kai Shah. It's the right option, but didn't quite get the snap on the pass. But it's opening up, relatively speaking. That's nice from Matt Gilbert into the 180 of Ollie Rock. He controls it to begin with on the edge, but didn't quite have the angle. But very nice passing football instigated by Matt Gilbert. And already what I'm seeing in this opening 9 minutes is better than the majority of the stuff we saw in game week 1.
So much better. They're flowing really nicely here.
That's really nice
football.
That. Once again controlled, cushion 180 across the box, angled out of danger by Jack Ewins yet again, but take nothing away from the big triangles that West Brom are creating. Attacked at the back post and flicked out by Oscar Smedley. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, they're playing really well here, West Brom. Colin Gordon is very animated on the sideline, really enjoying what he's seeing. Obviously the pioneer of this side of football. Fantastic start from West Brom, and GBG need to try and find a way to break this cycle of West Brom pressure, otherwise they could be in risk of falling 2 behind. Right now it looks like a shoe-in that the next goal will be a West Bromwich Albion one.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. They're not necessarily playing 4 out, West Brom. They're being very conservative with the utilisation of that 4th attacker, whether that's Lucas Chrysler or Chris Gordon, but they're still generating the space and the overloads to really punish, as GBG observe their first change. George Holloway on in place of Reece Mallet.
picking off so much better. That was one of the main things that was frustrating to watch with West Brom in the first weekend. Is there was a lot of times where the ball would be played sort of centre wide or just down the middle of the court, and if there was a winger attacking that with the front bumper across, they would have been able to link the attacks really well, and they were missing those time after time in the first weekend. But already here they're hitting them so much more frequently. So difficult to deal with, especially as a centre player. You know, you look at Jack Ewins, when the ball gets picked off you at last minute, you're basically cut out of the game for the next, 5 seconds of the sequence, because the game's all happening behind you.
Matt Gilbert into Chris Gordon, slightly forced into the side of the GBG Knights defence. Chris Gordon coming to attack that loose ball. Oscar Smedley's going to be tested. I did always feel it was a case of you're probably going to want to have faced West Brom earlier in the season, because the more they play, the sharper they get, the better that chemistry and those connections become, and that's certainly been the case in what we've seen so far today.
And they've got players that are really well developed.
That's the light shine bright. That's much better.
Yeah, it is much better. I don't know what just happened, but yeah, wow, I didn't realise it could get brighter in here, and then all of a sudden it was like waking up.
They did update all of the lighting a few years ago. But no, that's fantastic. I feel like I'm awake now.
Yeah, now I feel like I'm in the game.
The energy, it's like a boost of vitamin D.
Yeah. Wow.
But Chris Gordon still pressuring. I mean, if you look at their schedule across Gameweek 2, they follow this up with a game against Sevenoaks. Incredibly challenging and difficult circumstances around them, with the sad passing of Miles Miller. Tomorrow they play West Bromwich Albion Throstles and Villa Rockets, so 2 derbies to contest. But if you're Chris Gordon, if you're Colin Gordon, you're probably wanting maximum points. There's a slight bit of confusion in that GBG defence. Villa Rockets, a goal up against Muscle Warriors on Court A. Scoreline shared on Court B. Into Matt Gilbert, he saw the gap. Lovely little flick. But Oscar Smedley adjusted. And he would have learnt a lot from game week 1, Oscar Smedley. That game against Middlesbrough, I remember it vividly, separated by just a single goal scored by Carl Forster. And it was the gap left by Oscar Smedley which allowed them to capitalise. So he's always considering his placement to the uprights, and sometimes you need that adversity, that failure, to really learn and drill it into your kind of way of playing.
Yeah, and I mean, without sounding like a broken record, we always talk about, don't we, teams that are new to the league, the most important thing out of the first weekend, and arguably the first 2, maybe even the first 3 weekends, is just developing and learning and allowing yourself to be brave enough to make mistakes, and then not making those same mistakes again.
I don't recall exactly, but I think we said between 13 and 16 points may be enough to escape automatic relegation.
Yeah.
So you're picking your battles. That's 3 or 4 wins across the season against the likes of Muscle Warriors, Sevenoaks, Middlesbrough, Throstles. So use these games to really sharpen your system, and there's no telling what you can do. It is a long season. It's always a marathon, not a sprint. So don't be too disheartened with no points from their opening 4 games, and potentially 5 if this one ends in the favour of the 5-time champions.
I think the other thing to consider is that, like, because of the dates where we have our Premiership weekends, you know, they're quite heavily loaded into sort of the end of the spring and like the start of the summertime. It can be quite demoralising because you get to Christmas and you think we still haven't got any points or we haven't won a game and it's Christmas.
For sure.
And obviously in the running game that would be like a nightmare, you know, you're in Wolverhampton Wanderers territory. But in this... Ooh.
And he's done it, he's angled it towards goal beautifully! And that is always the danger with West Brom, the system that they play, they commit players forward. And first of all, it was the interception from Jack Ewens, absolutely sensational angling from Kai Shah, and out of nowhere, GBG Knights have found the equaliser.
Yeah, that's such a hard skill to master, that from Kai Shah. Just literally the deftest of flicks, and wow, I really did not see that coming at all.
No, it's their first sight on goal beyond that first chance within the first 10 seconds or so from Oscar Smedley. And against the run of play, they have found a really nice goal. Don't disregard the role that Jack Ewens plays there. Absolutely central to them finding that. And now it's about how they react, because whilst West Bromwich Albion have been knocking on the door, nothing overly clear cut. They've played some nice passing football, but the scoreline now favourable to GBG Knights.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one because I remember the Aspire Invitational, which was before the first game of the season. These two played each other, and GBG basically scored. GBG beat West Brom 3-1 and they scored 3 goals basically exactly like that, or similar things, ricochets and West Brom being caught out at the back. So maybe a little bit of tactical naivety from West Brom to leave themselves open like that, and very good from GBG Knights to remember that vulnerability and to capitalise on it.
Those 2 goals they conceded in game week 1 were pretty comparable. Both came against Muscle Warriors. Both breakaway counters, capitalising and punishing the system that they adopt. So there's clearly a blueprint to score and hurt West Brom.
Certainly in these kind of games, I think, and I think this is why teams like Greenbank and Aspire struggled as well, because they didn't leave that space in those kind of games at all.
It's almost a case you have to invite the pressure, you have to invite the overload, invite the 4-out press, and then use that as the trigger. But that comes with a huge amount of risk and jeopardy potentially.
Literally, like, you think about it, they had that snapshot in the first 30 seconds of the game, and then they literally didn't go forward for then the next quarter of an hour almost, and then they've just nicked an equaliser. It's vintage counter-attacking, defensive, good quality football from a side towards the bottom of the table.
You have to say the defensive work has been fantastic. 19 minutes played, West Bromwich Albion 1, GBG Knights 1. Trapped into Chrysler. Back to Chris Gordon now. They're going for that kind of 4-out way of playing. Trying to look for the channel, occupied by Matt Gilbert, who receives it at the second time. Over to Ollie Rock, couldn't get the angle or the purchase to guide it goal bound with any real venom.
I thought he'd successfully made that little pass through the gap, Chris Gordon there. That's one of my favourite skills in Powerchair Football. When there's like the 2 players, obviously a keeper in the box and like a winger on the edge, and you manage to just thread it through. It's so satisfying when it comes off.
Holloway looking for the diagonal switch. Jack Ewens up to intercept. Regulation 20 has been played, a potential overload, but Jack Ewens adjusts brilliantly. Whistle in the mouth of Ian Harley. And that signals the end of actually a very good half of football. I think there'll be very contrasting team talks now. West Brom started so brightly, but that breakaway equaliser has given them a lot to think about approaching the second. Join myself, Ryan Sipple, and Charlie McClellan shortly. Hello everyone and welcome back to the second half of West Bromwich Albion against GBG Knights. We are underway. It was a fantastic first half of football. West Brom dominated much of the possession and attacking territory, but a breakaway equaliser really shocked them in the latter stages. Will be very intriguing to see how they react in the second, because they just lack that little bit of firepower, that little bit of potency to break GBG Knights down. Full credit to the role that Jack Ewins has played so far.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting game. It was a fascinating first half. Looking forward to this second one. West Brom, you'd expect, will play a similar way, front-footed, try and create as many opportunities as they can, but wouldn't surprise me if there was a discussion in that half-time about also just maybe shutting it up at the back, because you think GBG will try and utilise the same counter-attacking avenue to score again in this game.
Gone all the way back to Ollie Rock, but just not placed where Lucas Chrysler would have wanted it. Just invites that pressure from George Holloway. The team's in full. Chris Gordon, Lucas Chrysler, Ollie Rock, Matt Gilbert for West Bromwich Albion. GBG Knights, Oscar Smedley, and there's a gap there, but once again he knows of his placement to that left-hand post. Oscar Smedley, Jack Ewins, Kai Shah and George Holloway, that of GBG Knights. I think the longer this goes on, the longer it remains 1-1, the more West Brom will get frustrated. Maybe GBG can look to replicate what they did in the first, just containing them for the majority and then looking to break in moments rather than long spells. Chris Gordon, central, nice pick off from Matt Gilbert, but so congested in this final third. It's always the danger when it does get overcrowded, overloaded. Now, can we see another replica of that very intriguing set piece? Does look as if they're going to try and do something with regards to Chris Gordon's front bumper. Keep an eye on Matt Gilbert on the far side. Over to Matt Gilbert, fires an effort, goal bound. I really like it. It needs a little bit more accuracy on Matt Gilbert's half, but
interestingly, that was number 2 from West Brom. They have like a numbering system for their set pieces, which is quite cool. I guess you don't really want to communicate exactly what you're doing to the opposition, so labelling your set pieces like that is an intelligent thing to do. Have you just started posing for the camera?
I didn't even know the camera was on us. I'm sure there's some very unflattering pictures, actually. Quite the contrary.
Lovely WFA photographer.
There's a reason I'm behind the mic, not behind the camera. Or in front of the camera, sorry. Lucas Chrysler down to Matt Gilbert. Just exchanging passes on that line. They're just trying, you can see they're trying to invite George Holloway to overcommit and then either place the ball centrally towards Ollie Rock or Chris Gordon or back down to Matt Gilbert.
Yeah, it's literally all about timing the way West Brom play. You've just got to get it exactly right. See, they maybe got the timing better, but they didn't have the accuracy.
George Holloway. All the way back to Chris Gordon, closed by Kai Shah.
Better from GBG, just gaining that territory.
Villa Rockets commanding a fairly comprehensive scoreline on court A, 3-0 currently against Muscle Warriors. Fantastic way to start the weekend. Ollie Rock just can't catch up to it. I think there is a tendency for Ollie Rock to look for the two-touch 180 when sometimes just that swing of the chair would be more favourable. I think he could or would have connected had he committed to the 180 at the first time of asking there.
He's another one though that's going to develop a lot this season. He's good, you know, we've seen it. He's already improved quite significantly since, you know, pre-Club World Cup. He struggled at points last season, but then scored an absolute screamer against Villeneuve in the semi-final of that Club World Cup.
I think it was Tigres, but we both gave it. We both gave it as our goal of the competition, and we said that across that Club World Cup, he was one of the brightest players. He really grew into the competition. He's a confidence player, and the more confidence he has, the more comfortable he is on the court. The more comfortable he is on the court, the better his decision making, the sharper he is, the better his reactions are.
See what they're trying to do.
You can. Chris Gordon, central, and it's always reliant on Matt Gilbert to find those pockets, find that space to use his front bumper out to Ollie Rock or Lucas Chrysler. And it does a great job in drawing those green shirts towards the ball. And now another 2-on-1 indirect free kick, much wider into Chris Gordon, swipes it towards goal. Fantastic defending from Oscar Smedley. Again, covering his near post.
Oh, I think that hit the post.
Ollie Rock.
GBG will be unlucky to concede from this. Well done, Oscar Smedley.
Not a great deal of appeals.
No, other than Marcus Harrison laughing hysterically next to us for some reason.
Chris Gordon, really nice. Feinted to engage at the first time. He did that slight touch off Kaishar's bumper.
That pass from Chris Gordon is so good.
He's flicked goal bound. I don't think it'll have the power, but that is always the danger. Always seems to be pockets for GBG to capitalise on and punish. Could very easily be 2-1 in favour of GBG Knights.
Lucas Chrysler is one of the hardest players in the entire league to flick the ball off. He makes it literally impossible. His chair angling is so good. And of course, I say that and then Jack Gewins gets around him.
You should know that Curse of the commentator's real by now. How many times have we been stung by it in the past? As Chris Gordon pushes it down to Ollie Rock, returns the favour. I thought that would be cut out by Kaishar. Nice passing football, just needed a little bit more power and readiness from Lucas Chrysler on that occasion. But as was the case in the first, they've got possession, they've got territory, but GBG under no real danger. Once again, that pick-off from Matt Gilbert, so important in that very congested GBG Knights box. Always have to be considerate of the 2-on-1 as Kaishar and George Holloway, like moths to a flame. It's firefighting, it's reactive for the most part, so you can forgive the high prevalence of 2-on-1 infringements because it's almost impossible to deal with. If you're not there, if you don't close the space, they'll capitalise.
Yeah, and the thing is, if West Brom aren't using these set pieces, then that's their fault. They're all gilt-edged chances to score, and they're just not getting them right now. And GBG, they'd rather give a 2-on-1 away than just let someone pick it off across the box and have a free shot at their goal.
West Brom have 10 minutes. If they want to take 3 points from this, they're going to have to find a way to bypass Jack Ewins. Chrysler to Gilbert, looking for that gap that just isn't there.
Great intervention there at the last minute from Kai Shah. Really important.
Ollie Rock back to Chrysler. Diagonal splitting pass. It was there. It invited Matt Gilbert to attack it, but once again well read by Jack Ewins. And once again a 2-on-1 in favour of West Bromwich Albion. Some of the GBG Knights players slightly bemused as to that decision.
Can they make this count?
Gilbert into the front bumper of Chris Gordon. They're just cutting all of those opportunities out. Their unpredictability has turned into predictability.
Yeah, you don't wonder if Harry Bestwick off the bench may be utilised late on here to try and just provide something a bit different for West Brom.
Obviously a fairly thin West Brom squad from what we've expected. No Brad Bates, no Barris Innell. Chrysler into Gordon, cut out. How many times have we said that in the 33 minutes played by Jack Ewins?
Yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic start for Ewins. He looked a bit lost in the first sort of 10 minutes, but since then he's really settled down and marshalling the game really well.
Lucas Chrysler with responsibility of this corner ball. Into the box, left by Chris Gordon, over to Ollie Rock, saved on the line by Jack Ewins and cut out, and that's very heavy contact in the box. Goes in the favour of Ewins. Very much a 50-50 coming together, but yeah, Jack Ewins made connection with the ball.
That's what saved
very
him, I think,
much
yeah.
Right decision from Ian Harley and a let-off, but again, fantastic defensive work. And we're bordering into a conversation, Charlie, of GBG Knights very much deserving a point here for their efforts.
Yeah, definitely in the second. I thought they were probably a bit lucky to go into half-time level, but the way that they've played to defend that sort of that point, a point that would be so valuable to them in this game, yeah, they've done so well.
What that could do for their confidence across the weekend could be huge. As mentioned, they follow this up against Leeds, which will be another incredibly tough ask, but beyond that, very much winnable games. This would have been one of the fixtures they wouldn't have been expecting a great deal from. Harry Bestwick on in place of Matt Gilbert, so be interesting to see what sort of impact he makes.
Yeah, talking of substitutes, it would be remiss of us to commentate on GBG Knights and not give a massive shout out to Ben Keat over there, who's made his second trip of the season from Australia to play in our National League. Such incredible commitment, and he's not been able to be involved in this one so far, but I'm sure he'll get some involvement over the weekend.
Yeah, with it so finely poised, I very much doubt we'll see any substitutes from here on out for GBG Knights. They're going to try and grasp onto this potential point. Harry Bestwick testing Jack Ewins once again, but he's always considerate of which way he angles his chair. Into Chris Gordon, slight switch up. See, on that occasion, I'm pretty sure it come off Oscar Smedley's chair. It ricocheted.
Yeah, I didn't have a great view of it, to be honest.
It looked at, from my angle, certainly, that it took a slight touch, but again, no appeals. Into the channel. Intercepted by Chris Gordon. They're going to just try and wind the clock down. Under 4 minutes to go, so it's very much possible. That did take a touch off Harry Bestwick last.
Yeah, fair play. Good defending. The game is so finely poised. It would be so dramatic if either side was able to get a winner.
This would be West Brom's 4th draw in their opening 6 games. That's unheard of when you consider where they've been, what they've achieved. But it's very much a rebuilding phase for the 5 times champions. There's no question about that.
Just be careful here in the box of the contact.
He's so cute with his chair, Jack Ewins. Into Lucas Christ, attempts an effort off the left upright. Again, cleared by Jack Ewins, not once but twice. Defensively speaking, they've been fantastic. I don't want it to be cursed. So the commentating, it ricochets off Jack Ewins' chair once again. And out for a corner ball. Time is not on the side of West Brom.
It's not.
They've got just over 2 minutes, but they're building some momentum. Chrysler into Chris Gordon's front bumper, cleared on the line by Jack Ewins. He's been absolutely incredible this game, the GBG Knights number 18.
Yeah, mammoth defensive effort from him and Smedley at the back.
Chris Gordon caught in 2 lines there.
Yeah, I was just going to say the role of Kai Shah as well in the defensive efforts has been fantastic. He's been nipping in where he can, and yes, probably giving away more 2-on-1s than he would have wanted, but some of the interventions he's made on that edge of the box have been invaluable, and that's a great foul for GBG Knights to win.
Can they wind the clock down? We're approaching the final minute, Charlie. I'm going to push you for a player of the match. Must take your time, do it in the final 10, 20 seconds, because anything could still happen, and I'm sure your decision will be based on match outcome.
Yeah, I think it will, but also I'd be very surprised if my player of the match changes.
That's definitely a contact foul. 2-on-1, interestingly, signalled by Ian Harley. So I think Chris is just trying to understand whether it's indirect or direct. Whilst it was a 2-on-1 in terms of the placement of George Holloway, there was contact. Looks as if it will be indirect. And this is it. This is the opportunity. 40 seconds left. Chris Gordon into Harry Bestwick, across to Lucas Chrysler, cleared by Jack Ewins, picked off by Kai Shah. You can see they're very reluctant to commit Ollie Rock forward. They don't want to leave any vulnerabilities in behind. It would be disastrous if they came away with nothing from this game, considering how they started. Okay, 5 seconds remaining, Charlie, of regulation.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Jack Ewins. I think he's been so strong in the middle for GBG, absolutely marshalled the game, so switched on, disciplined, fantastic. He's just been such a mammoth defensive performance. Obviously, he played a huge part in the goal as well that GBG Knights scored. He was the one that set Kai Shah off, and that's the final whistle, which signifies that he's marshalled his side to a very well-deserved and very important point.
A fantastic game of football. West Brom scoring within the first 4 minutes. It looked like it would be one-way traffic. It would be almost a certain 3 points. That was certainly the way we was discussing it and the narrative that we weaved around what we were seeing. But against the run of play, Kai Shah got that beautiful equaliser in the first half, and West Brom just didn't have enough to break down Jack Ewins and Oscar Smedley in the GBG Knights defence. Fantastic point for them, their first of the season. We'll bring up the live league standings. Thank you to all that have tuned in. Next up in Game Week 2 of the Slater and Gordon Premiership, certainly on Court B, Greenbank versus Middlesbrough.